Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. The Western powers were neither deterred by Iran's threats nor lured by its promises as Britain, France, and Germany, backed by a somewhat reluctant European Union, put in place the snapback mechanism of severe sanctions against Tehran based on Iran's insistence on enriching its uranium dangerously close to weapons-grade material and its refusal to let the IAEA, or the International Atomic Energy Agency, fully inspect its nuclear facilities. With both Israel and the United States showcasing that they can strike the Iranian nuclear project at will, and U.S. President Donald Trump publicly declaring his wishes for a peaceful Tehran to join an expanded Abraham Accords regional framework, are we closer to conflict or cooperation with the Islamic Republic? Joining us for the discussion, all the way from Washington, D.C., includes retired Brigadier General Mark Emmett, formerly a U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs. It's good to see you, General.
Good to see you, Jonathan.
It's a pleasure having you. Also, a pleasure, no less, is Reserve Brigadier General Doron Gavish, formerly the Air Defense Chief of the IDF Air Force, currently the commander of the Israeli Air Force Task Force for Air and Missile Defense. It's a pleasure having you, sir.
Good to be here, Jonathan.
And last but not least, our TV7 editor-at-large, Mr. Amir. Oren, Amir, the Islamic Republic obviously is vigorously opposed to anything Western at this point in time. It is finding itself increasingly isolated. Nevertheless, I do assume that the shadow fleets of oil and other commodities that are currently strictly restricted under a host of new UN Security Council resolutions, rather reinvigorated or reimposed, are making their way to its strategic partners, be it China and others.
Well, you say strict, restrict. What is the enforcement mechanism? Not about the international banking system, but if someone wishes to contravene, are there any penalties, any punishments? Now, two facts. Here we are in the month of October. Later this month, the sanctions are supposed to get into force. But Russia is the president of the Security Council. So you know that any diplomatic move is going to be blocked by it if it is against the will of Iran. Another fact, the United States a week ago or so came out against the move of Iranian oil through Iraqi pipelines, because this is one way to try and bypass the sanctions. It does wish, Washington, that Baghdad try to stop this practice. General Kimmett here is the expert on Iraq. He may tell us whether it's feasible. And the third fact is that in his speech earlier this week, President Trump put the choice to the Iranians, or in question form, are you with us or against us? If you are with us, paradise awaits you. If not, hell. And we'll have to see whether Khamenei responds either way.
Irrespective of what he actually responds, the chants surrounding him in his presence, supporting those and infusing those even further, will remain death to America and death to Israel. And with that, General Kimmett, what is your take on the current complexity vis-a-vis the Islamic Republic?
Well, I think, first of all, Amir brings up a good point about enforcement. But the problem is we do reach an agreement eventually. There will also be what I think is a more important problem, which is that of verification. Typically, the Iranians, and for that matter, any country that's under an inspection regime, is going to insist on inspection only of announced locations, which means that we can expect that the Iranians will have significant number of unannounced locations. So I do believe it's the end of the problem of which there are manifestly many before that. But the ultimate question is, how do you verify? And if you can't, or you do verify non-compliance, what is your enforcement mechanism and the will to use it?
Thank you, General Kimmett. General Kavish, your take on that?
So we are in a quite unique situation, I would say, that we have heard the historical speech earlier this week by President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, our Prime Minister, and now we are all waiting for the Hamas to come back with an answer. Same with the Iranians now. The snapback is there, starting from a few days ago, and once again we are waiting for the Iranians to make the decision. So I think that it all goes back to what you've just discussed. It was said by you, Jonathan, and by General Kimmett, that we are going back to the question of the enforcement. And I would say it is even more than the enforcement, is that the Iranians should understand that we are all serious, that there is also other options that could be carried out. The United States and for sure Israel did it already, and they have to understand that there is a price for the behavior. We've talked about the Israeli new strategy, which is a preemption. I think that we cannot tolerate a situation the Iranians are continuously going toward the nuclear capabilities. So for the long run, if they would continue behave like I think that Israel for sure would have to decide what it is going to do. But at the bottom line, I think that the whole international community, led by the United States, must explain to the Iranians that it is not sanctions, and they have much more to lose if they would continue with their track.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Oren, in our previous program, I mentioned the Latin phrase "vicis pacem parabellum." If you want to prevent war, you need to prepare for one. And it seems like Israel is preparing for the next confrontation with the Islamic Republic, but so are the Iranians. And they're trying to rehabilitate their proxies. They're trying to establish various deterrent forces, and of course, the oversaturation of its ballistic missile capabilities to try and challenge Israel's multi-layered air and missile defense program. In this context, what should be done in order to maintain that upper hand that Israel so dominantly achieved during the 12-day Operation Rising Lion?
So, almost every day, or at least every other day, we hear of seemingly ordinary Israelis being caught as would-be spies hired by Iranian intelligence, given low-level missions to try and take photographs of facilities or surveillance of key officials. If this is the best that the Iranian intelligence can do, it's not such a big threat, but of course, we only know what we see. And
the successful operations are ultimately those you never hear about.
Right. But when the Iranians look at their open source intelligence, they read in the Israeli press that for various reasons, including political ones in the run-up to early elections, which will probably be announced, Israel could strike at them. So whether that will have a deterrent effect or provoke them to try and preempt an Israeli strike remains to be seen. Now, one is reminded of what happened in Egypt in 1973 when President Sadat tried to get long-range strike aircraft from Libya, among others, or Scud, surface-to-surface missiles, in order to deter Israel from striking deep into Egyptian territory, Cairo, Alexandria, and the like. And the Iranians are trying to rebuild their ballistic missile factories. They don't have the ultimate tool, mixers, for their centrifuges. However, Israel has shown that it knows how to peel all of the air defense systems. With all due respect, General Gavish, not all air defense systems are alike. No offense to the Israeli defense, only to the Iranian one. And the Iranians will probably try to put fear into the hearts of Israeli citizens, civilians, rather than the Israeli military. The Israeli military has shown that the Air Force bases, while not immune from an Iranian attack, can operate. There was no problem with the Israeli strike force acting continuously in Iranian skies. So if Israel sees that the Iranians are dangerously close to rehabilitating their force, it will probably preempt.
General Kitmet, if I may quote General Gavish for a moment, partners in peace, brothers in war, something that is obviously stated time and again between Israeli and American senior command, as well as troops operating shoulder to shoulder in various fora. But to put aside the proof many times over that the United States stands by its allies and partners during times of war, the Chinese and Russians have not showcased that same merit to their Iranian counterparts. More so, at a time when the Iranians were keen on getting their first batches of the Sukhoi 57, which was supposed to be delivered, suddenly a other client, namely India, was the one who received the first batch of 20 aircraft at its expense, with another large order of roughly 140 aircraft expected to follow. What is Iran supposed to do or perceiving in this context at a time when strategic power competition is at play and we are seeing the various actors maneuvering on the global stage in multiple facets and regions of this world?
Yeah, I don't want to sound too verbose, but it's almost a theoretical, if not a theological issue. The fact remains is the relationship between Iran and China and Russia is transactional. What do you get from me? What do I get from you? If I don't get it from you, who can I get it from? There is no ideological foundation between their cultures, between their countries, between their histories. Obviously, it's a little bit different between the United States and Israel. When we talk about being brothers in war, we mean it. We continue to say in America these days, much to criticism, too much criticism, that America is a Judeo-Christian country. We have ideological similarities and ideological consistencies between the two of us. People don't go to war and defend other countries for any other reason than transactional. You take a look at Russia and the United States, Soviet Union and the United States in World War II fighting against the Germans, and started fighting against the Soviet Union right after that. There are no long-term relationships in transactional relationships. There are relationships when you have ideological underpinnings. Yes, while it's true that countries don't have friends, they have interests, our interests align far closer to Israel than Iran does to Russia, to China, to India.
Absolutely. Well, General Gavish, I'd like to hear your take on that. And beyond that, we do see that the Chinese are providing at least the components to the Iranians to try and develop their infrastructure once again that has been destroyed for the sake of developing a large arsenal of surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, as well as surface-to-air capabilities, which were, of course, fully destroyed during, or rather not fully, but were mostly destroyed during Operation Rising Lion and As such, Midnight Hammer, which the Americans pursued with the B-2 bombers, actually went uninterrupted by any surface-to-air capabilities, and that caught even the Americans off guard.
Well, you're right, Jonathan, and I think that we all need to look toward China. It is not only the grand strategy of United States, but the whole region. And we see that the Chinese are more and more proactive in our region. We all remember the exercise that was done with Egypt not too long time ago. And we see their involvement here and there. So I think that this is for sure something that we all need to take into consideration. And also, from United States point of view, there is always this, and I'm going back to the defense strategy, the national strategy of the United States, that it is looking on different regions, and indeed for quite a long time they see the Chinese region or threat as a quite intensive one. The challenge is that we see the Chinese all over. We see them in Africa, we see them in the Mediterranean. So being involved in the Mediterranean for the United States is also encountering the Chinese threat. So everything is connected to everything. And when we are aligning interests, so also the Chinese proactive behaviors, this is something that it is an interest that is aligned between Israel and the United States.
Thank you, General Gavish. Mr. Oren?
If we try to gauge the Iranian negotiating position, obviously the Supreme Leader Khamenei is giving his negotiators some leeway. And he has okayed the very round of negotiations with the E3, those European powers to which you referred to in your introduction. It did not succeed because the snapback is now in operation.
Well, they weren't playing ball. Let's
Yes.
put it plainly. They were dragging their feet, expecting the Europeans to accept their misbehave and just carry on the way they've been doing now for many years.
Right.
And the fact that they did not receive that same outcome does indicate a change of play.
Okay, so we don't know what is happening in a back channel, if there is one, or indirectly through Oman or any other possible interlocutor. But we can obviously read the public messages that Khamenei has posted. And for instance, he is talking about enrichment to 60%, which is, of course, way higher than what they need for peaceful purposes. And he is trying to portray it as a concession because it is not 90% the level needed for nuclear weapons. So he is giving the president and the foreign minister and the other members of his government, not the regime, the government, some indication that he is willing to go ahead and negotiate some more. Whether he is willing to give them real concessions to give to President Trump, we don't know yet.
Indeed. Well, General Kimmel, I'd like to broaden the discussion somewhat into the proxy aspect, and to what degree does that still accommodate the long-term strategic objectives of the Islamic Republic, also when it comes to its aspirations to acquire what Khomeini at the time called the ultimate weapon to ensure the survivability of the regime?
Well, look, we have always said that the three fundamental arms of the foreign policy of Iran are missiles, nukes, and proxies. The proxies have been set back, rocked back, but you in Israel know the expression better than anyone. You've only mown the grass. And there's no reason to expect that Hezbollah will disarm. We know that the Lebanese will be negotiated out of ridding them of southern Lebanon and disarming. The Houthis are still active. The Iraqis, which have not been a huge problem, but nonetheless have been a problem, just seem to be a bit quiescent right now, probably while they're waiting to see what happens with the Iraqi elections. So, and then of course we're talking about Hamas and Gaza. We don't ever expect to see the end of that organization, even though we think we're going to negotiate that away. So, in the issue of the proxies, I think that they are temporarily set back. But as an arm of Iranian foreign policy, I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. They just need time to regrow. On the issue of missiles, their missile technology programs are continued unabated. They continue to get assistance from countries such as India and Russia. So they will grow that back, as well as getting their air defense systems returned, not necessarily returned, but renewed from other countries. And candidly, I don't think that the Islamic Revolution is going anywhere near slowing down their nuclear development. So while I think the world was astounded by the military capability of the 12-day war, I think most people take a look at that situation. They say Iran has been set back, but there's been no change in behavior in either terms of policy or in terms of ultimate end states that the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps and the Iranian regime are looking towards.
You said India, you meant China, I assume.
There's been some question about whether India has been providing mechanisms for the control of the long-term ballistic missiles. There have been some shortfalls within Iran. Perhaps I'm speaking out of turn, but there seems to be a pretty clear link between India and elements of the Iranian missile program.
Interesting.
Pakistan too, and North Korea.
Right. Yeah, Pakistan and North Korea I knew. I did not know about India. We do have a lot of viewers in India, and I encourage them to look into this. General Gavish, I'd like to hear your take on that. General Kimmett obviously mentioned the Houthi menace since they continue to launch on a daily basis, both unmanned aerial vehicles, one-way drones, namely, and surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, something that they don't intend to stop anytime soon. Israel, during Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech at the UN General Assembly, mentioned, of course, the fact that half of the Houthi leadership has been eliminated, but it doesn't seem to be diminishing any of the hostilities directed at Israel or freedom of navigation at that, considering the fact that we don't see many Western vessels, if any, transiting through the strategic strait of Bab el-Mandeb.
Well, you're right, Jonathan. The Houthis are still there, although we have to say that we did strike quite strong in Yemen, and I believe that probably with the time there is an effect of those continuously strike, and we should continue with it. We should continue with both our efforts in the offense and, of course, in the defense, although we are very successful in the defense, still, unfortunately, as we always say, it is not hermetic, and we do see some UAVs which are penetrating Israel. So we have to continue and be very alert on the defense. But I think that in general, what we would have to do is to look more toward the offense. We have to remember that we are still, in more than one area of fight. And the Gaza Strip is still there. So Israel have to make the decision and to decide when it is going to do it and how it is going to do it. But I think that with regard to the Houthis, it's not only a question of defense.
If I may just add to what General Gavish said, a few nights ago at 1 a.m., there was another missile raid alert. Many Israelis, and perhaps our viewers throughout the world, would find it hard to believe, but this is the routine here now. Many Israelis heard the alert, but regarded it as somewhat akin to a baby wailing at the neighbors or a dog barking in the neighborhood. Perhaps this is being too complacent, but they did not rush to their safe rooms or to a shelter as perhaps they should have been, because they have trust and confidence in Doron's colleagues and their American collaborators.
Indeed. Well, we have time for a closing sentence.
I think because you're raising a very important point. This is the curse of the success, we call it. And we really urge and ask everyone to go to the shelters. It is not hermetic once again. And we have to remember also there are debris that are coming out of also the interceptors themselves. So thank you for raising this point, because it is super important again and again to remind everyone to listen to those orders coming out of the Home Front Command and to go to the shelters. This is really a lifesaver.
This is what you are doing yourself, Doron?
Every time.
Of course.
Of course.
Every time
General
I do it, and I
Kimmett.
make sure that my family is there.
General Kimmett, the last 20 seconds are yours.
Yeah, very quickly, my comments about India primarily focused. I didn't realize this was 2025. There is no determined official support for any type of smuggling into Iran with those missile components. It is clear that, particularly when I was at the Department of State in the mid-2000s, we sanctioned some individuals from India who were, at that time, smuggling missile parts into Iran. Whether that continues, that's hyperbole on my part and a hypothesis on my part. But at this point, there certainly is no official support from India for that program.
Disclaimer put, this is all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank General Kimmett and General Gavish for all of your insights. I'd like also to thank Mr. Amir Oren and all of you at home as well. Until our next edition, from here in Jerusalem, Shalom.
For more of TV7 Israel's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Jerusalem Studio, now available on Spotify.